You know, for centuries, we've talked about mental illness as this ghost in the machine, something that's invisible, maybe not even entirely physical. But what if it's not a ghost at all? What if these conditions leave actual physical traces we can see, footprints inside the brain itself? That's what we're digging into today.
So let's just get right to it. This is the big question, isn't it? Forget all the metaphors and abstract ideas for a minute. If you could actually hold a brain affected by a major psychiatric disorder in your hands, what would you see? What would be different?
And this is where the mystery really begins. It's a tale of two brains. On one hand, you have a neurological disease, like Alzheimer's, and the damage there is, well, it's tragically obvious. You see widespread decay, plaques, lesions. But then you look at a brain with a psychiatric illness, like schizophrenia, and to the naked eye, it can look surprisingly normal. The changes are so subtle that for a long time, people argued if they were even there at all. And that's our detective story.
So, to crack this case, we're going to zoom in on one specific file: schizophrenia. Scientists have been chasing down clues on this one for over 100 years, looking for that physical evidence.
And I mean, this is not a new hunt. This goes way back. We're talking Alois Alzheimer himself describing subtle changes way back in 1898. But for decades, the results were all over the place, and a lot of people just wondered if it was a dead end.
But then our technology got better, and as it did, a really consistent pattern started to pop up. Postmortem studies began to show, again and again, this small but significant reduction in the size of key brain areas, like the hippocampus.
Let's put a number on that, because it's important. We're talking about a consistent 15 to 20% average reduction in volume in these critical areas for memory and emotion. Now, it's not a huge, gaping difference, right? But it's real, it's consistent, and it's physical.
And it didn't stop there. As researchers looked closer, the list of clues just kept growing. They found other subtle things. The overall brain weight was a little less. There was a bit more empty space inside, and even the super intricate folding pattern of the brain's surface was different. The evidence was definitely piling up.
But here's where the story takes this incredible plot twist. Because the biggest, most important clue wasn't something they found, it was something that was missing.
Okay, so to get this, we need to know about something called gliosis. The easiest way to think about it is it's the brain's version of scar tissue. When the brain is being actively damaged by something like an injury or a disease like Alzheimer's, these special cells called gliocells rush in and form a scar. It's like the brain's flashing red light for ongoing damage.
This star-shaped cell right here, that's an astrocyte, and it's one of the main scar formers. In a brain that's actively degenerating, you would expect to see these guys everywhere, working overtime. And here is the jaw dropper. Researchers looked for this scar tissue, this gliosis, in the brains of people with schizophrenia, and they couldn't find it, not in any widespread way. Even with the smaller brain structures and all the other changes, that telltale sign of ongoing decay just wasn't there.
I mean, this changes everything, right? If the brain isn't actively breaking down day after day, year after year, then what on earth is going on? What could possibly explain these differences?
And the answer they landed on completely flipped the script. The problem wasn't that the brain was breaking down. The problem was how the brain was built in the first place. The original blueprint itself seemed to be subtly different, right from the very beginning.
So think about it. When a brain is developing, neurons are born and then have to travel to their final destinations to wire everything up. The leading theory now is that in schizophrenia, tiny errors happen during that journey, during that construction phase, leading to the small structural differences that we see in an adult brain years later.
The source material really puts it perfectly. It says, the changes don't point to degeneration, but instead to problems way back in the prenatal and postnatal periods, when the brain is first putting itself together.
Okay, so this whole altered blueprint idea is huge. But it's not just for schizophrenia. It turns out that other major psychiatric conditions also have their own unique physical fingerprints left on the brain.
Take mood disorders, for example. Here, we see a totally different set of clues. It's not so much about how neurons traveled, but about things like having fewer neurons and glial cells in the prefrontal cortex, or changes in the hypothalamus, which is a master regulator of stress. Different condition, different fingerprint.
And then you look at chronic alcoholism and you get another distinct pattern. Now in this case, we do see degeneration, but it's very specific.
You get brain shrinkage mainly from losing white matter, the brain's wiring, and you see neuron loss in very particular spots, like the cerebellum, which messes with coordination.
So we've looked at these different physical traces, these altered blueprints and patterns of damage. So what? What's the big picture here? Why does finding this stuff actually matter so much?
Well, here's the key takeaway when you put all these clues together. It's that major psychiatric illnesses are not just mental, they're not just a chemical imbalance. They are fundamentally brain disorders with real physical foundations. And crucially, many of them seem to be neurodevelopmental, meaning the brain's blueprint is different from the start, not that it's being actively destroyed over time.
And look, this isn't just some academic exercise. This changes everything. It helps finally put to rest so much of the stigma by grounding these conditions in concrete biology. And it gives researchers a totally new roadmap to follow when they're searching for new and better treatments.
Which leaves us with this incredible, and I think really hopeful question for the future. We're just learning how to read these altered blueprints. The next great frontier is to figure out how to design new treatments that don't just fight symptoms, but that actually work with the unique individual wiring of each person's brain.